Hey guys, welcome to Fantasy Effect episode 72. Sell your studs now. We're brought to you by Dynasty Theory in partnership with Dynasty Daddy, and as always, Fantasy Football Infinity. We'd like you to join the Dynasty Theory Discord. It is free to join. Please like, comment, and subscribe. No holler tonight, just McSpanky with me. How's it going, McSpankster?
It's going really good. I got this little gem in the mail.
Yeah,
Today.
we're all rocking them.
It's a fun little shirt. Supports the show. It's a super comfy shirt. It's on TeePublic. Check out the Discord for a link, and we can get you if you want to buy one and represent it. I'll probably bring this to Canton. So if you see us, we'll be in Canton for the Fantasy Football Expo in just under a month now. So if you see us walking around, feel free to come up, say hi, say what's up.
Yeah, no problem. We're super nice people. Nobody bites. Maybe Holler. I'm just kidding. This is because Holler's not here.
He might. I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't met him in person yet, so we don't know.
Right. We don't know. Maybe he's a hugger. There he is. Holler. Hey, you're on the clock too, Holler.
There he is.
So, should we pop in on this trade here? We didn't have any news. I guess.
Yeah, it's a slow time.
In boring news, not boring news, it's exciting. Receiver dropped today on Netflix. If you guys are looking for something to do during your downtime, I'm excited to get that started. After we record, I'll probably watch the first episode and fall asleep.
Have you seen that Hard Knocks off-season show with the Giants? It's pretty good. I have not.
Is it?
Yeah, it's not bad. I was watching it a little bit earlier before my kids came inside, and then I had to turn it off because there is some language. It's a real good show, and it's kind of interesting to see how some of these front offices work and kind of hear them talk about what they want to do with Saquon, and then hearing the GM of the Giants kind of prepping with their media team on how to answer questions that are going to come up during the press conference was really interesting too.
Oh yeah, I bet. Man, I wish I could watch that now because usually I'm just used to the training camp version.
Yeah.
I saw some of the clips. With them talking to Drake May and Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. I saw those that have circulated around on Twitter. That stuff is pretty wild. Just busting out play calls and things like that right then and there. I'm like, oh my god.
Anytime I hear quarterbacks and coaches start calling NFL plays, I just feel so stupid. I'm like, I don't know anything about any of this.
Right. I'm like, I can't even say those words.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Enough filibustering. Should we get into it?
Yeah, let's do it. So this is so in light of there being actual news, this is a trade that happened in one of my leagues, actually just today. So I thought it was kind of an interesting one, so I wanted to get your thoughts on it. So it's a 12-team league, Superflex, PPR scoring, 2-point tight end premium, so fairly standard Superflex league. Side A got Malik Neighbors, Noah Fant, a 2025 third. That team is kind of frisky, so we'll call it a mid. And then a 2026 second. That team is probably going to be contending, and I would assume they will contend next year as well. So I'm going to say it's a late second. And then the other side got Keon Coleman, Michael Pittman, and a 2025 2, which is probably going to be on the middler side, the later side of mid. So we'll call it the 208, 209, 207, somewhere in that range.
Later. Yeah.
Kind of an early round, playoff exit.
Sure. I think initially I wanted to smash Neighbors just because of that rookie name there.
Sure.
But I think, upon looking at it a little bit more, I think you could probably expect, probably pretty close to similar production from a rookie or Malik Neighbors to Michael Pittman. Then you get that frisky 2 that you're going to have next year. You don't have to wait 2 years out for that contender 26 second. That's going to be late. And I know, I'm pretty out on Keon Coleman. I don't have any Keon Coleman, but I can understand why people would want him in the trade based on all the, lack of wide receiver rapport with Josh Allen in Buffalo. It could become any one of those. So I could see why people buy into that hype. That's not for me personally. But I think I think I'm the Michael Pittman side with the frisky 2.
I think I with the Pittman side too. I initially wanted Malik Neighbors. And I think the only way this doesn't work out for you on the Pittman side is if Malik Neighbors turns into like rookie OBJ or
Right.
like Justin Jefferson or like Jamar Chase, and then you're probably kicking yourself thinking like, oh crap, I kind of just sold a superstar down the road for Michael Pittman Jr., who's fine in his own right, but he's like a wide receiver too, right? And Keon Coleman,
Right.
I don't think he's going to be a superstar. I think his ceiling is more, I don't know what, like a low end wide receiver 2, probably more like a wide receiver 3 is probably his like what you kind of hope for. And then a mid 2, like you said, like I'll take a middle 2 this year over a late 2 the next year. You're getting a better pick and an earlier pick. So really, yeah, I think I initially, when I first saw it too, I was like, oh, that's weird. They traded Malik Neighbors. But then when I looked at it, I was like, that's probably going to work out for the best for you. So side B, the Michael Pittman side, was actually JB from the Dynasty Daddy group. So
nice.
Yeah.
JB will be happy that we picked his. I like that we did that blind, because sometimes, if you see like, one of your friends trades, you're just like, just take that side just because, I don't want to, ruffle any feathers or anything like that. But should we get into the, selling our studs here?
Let's do it.
The main part of this show.
Off the roster. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to get them out of here. You don't want them on your team. Okay. Look, we're being a little bit facetious, I think, with the title and the sell your studs and get out of here. But I think there is a point in time when these guys hit super high values, when it is time to at least explore and see what you can't get for these guys. And my quarterback is CJ Stroud. He's at his ceiling right now at quarterback 3, and he was the quarterback 12 last season. This is coming off his rookie year. We get Stephon Diggs coming to town. He's got Bobby Slowick as his offensive coordinator. Everybody loves that. We've got Tank Dell, and everybody loves Tank Dell. Everybody loves Nico Collins now. Joe Mixon comes to town to help improve the run game. You can only hope that CJ Stroud takes a step forward into that sophomore season. And I think now is probably the best time to capitalize on that before we actually see that sophomore season. Because if he does not surpass what he did in his rookie year, it will be looked at as a disappointment for CJ Stroud. Unfortunately, that's just the way it works in Dynasty as a whole. Like, you have to one-up yourself every single time, if not at least equal yourself. And even if you equal yourself, there's a chance that you do drop. I found a few trades here. I'm not in love with every single one of these trades. I just kind of wanted to get, to talk about some of these trades and see what you thought about some of these trades, McSpanky. So we'll get into this first one here. We had CJ Stroud, Josh Palmer, and Noah Fant. It's a start 11, 12 teams. It's a 2 PPR for tight ends. And sorry, I did that weird. I announced one side and then gave the score. Anyway, other side is J.K. Dobbins, DK Metcalf, Kirk Cousins, and pick 106.
Okay, so I'm assuming this happened during like a later rookie draft. So let's assume who's going around to 106? There was a bunch of the quarterbacks. Was that like Neighbors area?
It's gonna be more like May, Adunze, Bowers. If I had to bet, that's probably
okay. That's probably more fair. Let's say it's like Drake May or Rumbadunze. I probably want that side with Cousins and DK Metcalf, just because. And so I wanted to kind of touch on CJ Stroud just a little bit. So I think I like CJ Stroud. I think he was awesome. He kind of came out of nowhere. We all thought he was kind of the rookie in the bad situation that was going to just suck. And he just said, no, I'm really good, which is awesome.
Right.
The problem is, like, how is he going to improve? Like, I mean, last regular season, he threw for over 4,000 yards, 23 touchdowns. He could probably throw for some more touchdowns. He had very few interceptions. He only threw for 5 interceptions last season. I would assume that number's going to go up. I mean, if you're throwing the ball 500 times like you did last year, like there's got to be some time, even if you're super careful with the ball, with how he throws it, just super aggressive. And I know he's a good quarterback, but that number's got to go up, right? The touchdowns could go up for sure. I think the yardage could probably go up a little bit, but his biggest thing is he doesn't run the football, right? Like he's not very athletic, and so there are other guys, like whether it's like a Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson, Anthony Richardson, that might be worse like quarterbacks in terms of like real life quarterbacks, but they can definitely bypass him on a fantasy point perspective. So for him to actually be a top 5, fantasy quarterback, it's going to be hard for him to hit that actually, just because he doesn't really run the ball, right? Unless he's throwing like, I don't know, like 45 touchdowns or something crazy, which would be a huge leap. And I know he did get Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell's coming back healthy, but I think that's a lot to ask for him. Especially with Joe Mixon coming to town. I think the run game's going to be better than it was last year.
Agreed.
So
let's.
So all of that to say, give me DK Metcalf, and then Kirk Cousins I really like, and then you're telling me I can get my choice of either if I want to take another quarterback and Drake May, who I'm not super high on. That could be JJ McCarthy for me, or Rome Odunze is great. Maybe if Malik Neighbors did drop, that'd be sweet because someone took some of the quarterbacks.
Feel like Scott. Oh, sorry. We have a brain burst with a Scott Fishbowl question.
Ron has been all up in the Scott Fishbowl.
Yeah. Geez Louise. Let me pull mine up really quick here. It has been a wild ride. The scoring is crazy. I didn't do much prep work for it, and honestly, everybody that I've talked to or seen talk, like in my chat or in the Dynasty Theory Discord, has kind of been the same way. They're just like, I haven't done much prep for it. Which way do we go? And we kind of went with tight ends early. Quarterback scoring was kind of down if you're outside of those top, 8 quarterbacks, I believe we were talking about.
Basically, if you don't run the ball, you're
right. You're dead to the world. It's got the points per carry in there. I was pretty excited to get Dalton Kincaid at 303. Honestly, with the target volume that we're probably expecting for Dalton Kincaid and nobody else being in Buffalo really right now, that one was pretty exciting for me. And I started off with Bijan, Jonathan Taylor, Dalton Kincaid, faded quarterback, and wound up with Trevor Lawrence. I couldn't fade quarterback any longer. I started seeing it, more and more go off.
Scared.
And I did a little bit. Even last year with T-Law having not a great season, I think he was still fine. And I think he has enough athletic rushing upside that where you could get some spike games here and there that I felt good enough to grab him there. Like, I didn't want to take Goff. I didn't want to take Tua. I didn't want to take Kirk Cousins. And I saw T-Law still sitting there. I'm like, I'm just going to do it just so I have a little bit of athleticism here at my quarterback position. But other than that, it's been super fun. I'm excited to see how it goes. The returners coming off, Rashid Shaheed at 7-2 in my draft.
Which that one's crazy because there's no guarantee he's even going to return kicks still, right?
Right.
He did last year, and that's where the volume came from. But what if he's not returning kicks and punts this year? Then all of a sudden you just spent a 7th round pick on a guy who's the wide receiver 2 or 3 in a just okay offense.
Derek Carr offense, yeah.
Which
somebody dropped some stats actually in my sleeper chat. I would have to go back and find them, but once they realized Rashid Shaheed was actually good at playing wide receiver, his punt return and kickoff return numbers dropped significantly. I didn't want to take off fake run 7, 10, 24. That's not the only time I've said that. Oh man. Anyway, back to these trades here. This one is just absolutely bananas because of their ADP right now. CJ Stroud for Anthony Richardson and a 2026 first rounder. Man,
that's wild.
Yeah.
I feel like just from like a value perspective, I feel like you have to take the first Anthony Richardson. Whether I don't even necessarily believe in Anthony Richardson, but I think you have to, right? Like, you can't pass it up because I'm looking at their startup ADP. Like, let me pull it up on Dynasty Daddy real quick, but I'm pretty sure they're both like in that first range. Yes, they are. So CJ
Mhm.
Stroud is overall number 4. Anthony Richardson's overall player 11 in terms of value. So you're basically getting a free first for moving slightly down a tier.
Right.
And then there's like, who's to say Anthony Richardson won't be like, if I told you Richardson was the QB1 overall this season, would it shock you in fantasy? Like,
I
just
wouldn't
because
be
of how athletic he
surprised.
is?
Right. I would not be shocked one bit. Trying to find it right now out there. I mean, really, if you go to a points per game basis, they were 0.3 of a point difference last year.
Well, and that's not even factoring in like Richardson left 2 of those 4 games, right? Like he didn't even get to finish some of them, right? So it would have been even higher because I think the 4th game that Anthony Richardson played, he left in like the first half, like the second quarter, I'm pretty sure. So
Right. So
and
that's
he
even going to
happened to
hurt that
score,
average.
so like that's
Right.
gonna hurt it. So that one's kind of crazy. I feel like that's one of those trades where if you send that out like 100 times, it gets rejected like probably like 100. But you just never know. There's always that one. It's always that one league, and there's someone
You got
who's
that one guy.
it's the one guy. He's like, CJ Stroud's my boy. I'm taking him.
Yeah, he is that guy, and he doesn't believe in Anthony Richardson. He says injury prone. This guy is just going to run himself into the ground, Cam Newton style.
Yeah.
Holler, it looks like he tried it with little to no success. I looked around for some CJ Stroud to Anthony Richardson pivots. I just didn't see any that were really going to work out. A couple savvy managers in some dynasty theory leagues, and I was just like, they're not going to bite on this hook. Yeah, I didn't.
You're asking way too much for that. Like,
if
you want to look in terms of like Dynasty Daddy's value, Stroud is at like 9,000, whereas Anthony Richardson's at 8,000. So you're looking at a player caliber of, I don't know, maybe like a Gus Edwards, probably like in that third range, as opposed to like a future first. Now, granted, it is 2 years out, but like come on now. Yeah, like Javon Baker, Rashid Shaheed, Khalil Shakir, Gardner Minshew, Tyler Lockett, Chase Brown, DeAndre Hopkins. They're all right around that, kind of like that 1,000.
Yeah, and at that point, it's not worth it to me to make the move.
No, because
really into one of those guys.
Yeah, and I feel way more confident in CJ Stroud being like, because we've seen him do it.
Future,
we saw Anthony Richardson look good in like 2.5 games, right? And then
and like multiple injuries, within those 2 games, So we got one more here for CJ Stroud.
This one's
and this is 12 teams, start 11, full PPR with a 0.75 for the tight end premium. This is Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, and the 105 for CJ Stroud, Jaden Reed, and 207.
Boy, Jaden Reed's doing a lot of work on that trade. My God. That's a Jalen Hurts smash to me. I don't even like Jalen Hurts.
Right. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, I would take it too. Give me the rushing upside, and I'm right there with you. I'm not really all into Jalen Hurts, but I couldn't say no to this package. That's for sure.
Oh, that's a good package.
You even get the stack. You even get the stack with Devonta.
I was gonna say I don't even like most of the guys on that side, but like just from a pure value perspective, you can't turn that down. Like
right.
Speaking of Jalen Hurts, he is my stud. I'm trying to sell. And I've actually sold all of my shares. I actually no longer have Jalen Hurts shares, but let me give you some of my rationale for this. Last season, 23% of his fantasy points came from rushing touchdowns, so you think that's basically a quarter. So which is Nutter Butters. As we know, like rushing touchdowns for quarterbacks are one of the more like fluctuating stats there is. So I think there's a reasonable expectation that number comes down from 15. Now, granted, it might only go down to like 10, or it might go down to 12, but because he is a good runner. But my concern is he had 157 rush attempts last season, which is a lot. And I think part of that was the running back crew they had in Philadelphia last season. That and their offense was really bad last year. It was pretty stale offense, kind of very vanilla and bland. They really could only do a few things, right? They could run Jalen Hurts. They did the little tush push, or they basically hucked it deep to AJ Brown or Devontae Smith. They brought in a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, which, I mean, we've talked about Kellen Moore quite a bit, but for what it's worth, he is, like, schematically, he has a better offense than what they were running last year.
Sure.
I mean, they were, I don't know if you remember, but like, I think it was one of the Monday Night Football games on the Manning broadcast. Another NFL player showed up, was like, oh, look at how they're lined up. They're running this play. And they ran it like word for what he was saying, because they showed what they lined up, and you could tell what they were going to run. Kellen Moore does a lot of things with, sending guys in motions, doing, kind of disguising his offense a little bit. And on top of that, they brought in Saquon Barkley, who's significantly better than DeAndre Swift. They paid him quite a bit of money. They paid him to use him, right? Like, so who's to say that some of those goal line rushes that Jalen Hurts used to get doesn't go to Saquon, who's their new running back, because he's actually a good goal line back as opposed to DeAndre Swift, who's more of a, I don't want to call him like a finesse back, but more of a speed back for sure than a power guy. Yeah. And then so the big thing too is Jason Kelce retired. He was their starting center. He's a future Hall of Famer, right? They moved their right guard over to play center, so they basically have two new starters on the offensive line. Technically, 4 of the 5 guys return, but one of them's a new position, so I'm going to count it as a new starter technically.
Sure.
The guy that replaced him at right guard is a third-round rookie who didn't play much last year, so the offensive line will probably still be good, but we don't know how good. And kind of right there in that interior, that center and right guard spot is where the tush push really excelled. So we'll see if they can still run it as successfully as they did. I personally don't think they will. So that's kind of why and so Jalen Hurts is like QB 3 or 4 right now in Dynasty Daddy. All right, so I feel like it's time to kind of move off of him. But what can we get? So I pulled up some trades. Here's what I saw. So I saw Jalen Hurts for a Trevor Lawrence and Christian McCaffrey. And I also saw a Jalen Hurts and Alvin Kamara for Jordan Addison, Trevor Lawrence, a 26 first and a 25 second. What are you thinking on those trades?
I'm going to take Trevor on both of them because I'm with you on Jalen Hurts. When I started playing Dynasty, it was about the time that Jalen Hurts came into the league, and I was adamantly out on Jalen Hurts. He then, went to have awesome seasons and proved me wrong, in those seasons. But I think last year he took some steps back, and we kind of saw what could happen to him if everything isn't going Jalen Hurts' way. He's definitely not, a pocket passer. So if those legs do start to go, I think it does start to spell some trouble for Jalen Hurts. And I agree with you. Now's the time to get out of him if you can, especially for packages like this. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, Christian McCaffrey is great. And Jordan Addison, 26 first and then a 25 second added to Trevor Lawrence. That's awesome too. And all you had to put was Alvin Kamara on there. I mean, Alvin Kamara is a mid 2 right now.
He was probably the second, right? So you probably got Hurts for Lawrence, Addison in the first.
Right.
So a couple of ideas I had too. So try to pivot down from Jalen Hurts to Trevor Lawrence, who I think Trevor Lawrence, man, he got so screwed over last year. Like, so I saw this clip, and it was showing all of the missed touchdowns he had. I counted them up the clip was like almost 2 minutes long. It was 15 passes. He hit receivers basically right in the hands, and they either dropped it or just stepped a foot just out of bounds. Like, he could have had, I mean, even if you give him half of those, he got like 8 more touchdowns than he had last season. And honestly, most of those were Calvin Ridley just bobbling the ball. I don't know if it was like a rust thing or what it was, but like, Ridley was a
Will Levis, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's another problem. But I do think Trevor Lawrence is in for some positive touchdown regression. So I think he's a guy that his value kind of fell down lower than it should be. And I think Jalen Hurts is probably higher than it should be just based on some of his rushing upside.
Sure.
If you look at their Dynasty Daddy values right now, Jalen Hurts is right around like 9,500, whereas Trevor Lawrence is like 5,000, which I know doesn't mean a lot, but if you look at kind of the guys who make up the difference there, that those are guys like Saquon Barkley, Travis Etienne, Jalen Waddle, Brandon Ayuk, or you could even do like a 25 first plus like a middling kind of help win now kind of guy like a DeAndre Hopkins or a Gus Edwards, Jerome Ford,
Sure.
that kind of thing. Which I think if you in any kind of like 12 team start 11 league, the more you can get packages and then not drop off that far in points per game. Because like honestly, I don't know if how you feel, but I feel like Trevor Lawrence is probably going to be closer to Jalen Hurts in points per game than he was last year for sure. But I don't think it's going to be like super drastic, especially if you're getting a couple extra, pieces to fill out your lineup. Like I say,
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think the big takeaway, like you're saying, is like you're getting Saquon added to Trevor Lawrence. Like, I mean, Trevor averaged 17 points per game last year, but then you're going to add Saquon, who's immediately going to upgrade your running back room. Like, unless your running back room is like Bijan, Brees, and Gibbs, like you're pretty happy to put Saquon in your starting lineup. Right. And I'm forgetting all the other studs you named off there, but like that's the thing is like you are selling a stud to get another stud, at a different position and still have, workable points in your quarterback or your super flex position. Cause Jalen Hurts could be your second quarterback. I mean, if you took him back in the day in, the late second of your rookie draft, that's barely paying anything for Jalen Hurts.
Right. And I really feel like people aren't factoring in the loss on the offensive line and Saquon coming in to replace DeAndre Swift. And I really think that there's going to be, I think Kellen Moore's created enough that he could show, a fake, like a tush push, formation, and then just to do a little toss to Saquon Barkley and the defensive stuff.
They've already ran it.
Saquon's gone. Yeah. And I think Kellen Moore's good enough that he's going to mix it up and not just do the same thing over and over again. Whereas their last offensive staff was just like, well, we know this works, so we're going to run it about 40 times.
Right. We're definitely doing this one. Yeah. And I mean, really the points per game difference between T-Law and Hurts is what? 4 points? 4 points per game is what you're losing there. And like we've already mentioned, the 15 dropped touchdown passes for T-Law in a down year. T-Law was hurt all year. We think he's got a little bit more athleticism, so you could add a few more rushing yards. I'm not talking like astronomical numbers rushing or anything, but there could be more, more than you're expecting to see from T-Law.
I think so too.
Yeah, Kellen Moore, former Lion, though, if you didn't know, former Matt Stafford backup quarterback.
I did know that. I know him from
Boise State, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Was he the Statue of Liberty quarterback? Was that him? No, it was somebody else.
Him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't think of his name, but I can picture him. He was on an old college football cover.
Yeah, man, I remember that. Oh my goodness.
Zabransky, is that wild?
Yeah, I don't know. We would have to look that one up. I remember the play is against Oklahoma, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in the overtime in the Fiesta Bowl.
Jared
Zabransky
blew my mind.
Well, that
Zabransky, look at you. Yeah, oh my goodness.
Oh, the deep cut. Let's go.
That was. Oh man, hit the likes for the Zabransky.
I could use this brain for something other than random stupid sports stats. Might make something.
Well, it's better than movie quotes. I mean, jeez Louise. Should we move on to Should we move on to the running backs?
Yeah, let's do it. Why don't you hit one of yours first?
Okay. I put down Travis Etienne, a Trevor Lawrence teammate. We'll just segue right into another Jaguar here. After week 9, Etienne only finished in the top 12 two times for running backs. He had a really hot start to the season. We've already heard them mention Tank Bigsby's name multiple times this offseason about wanting to get him more involved, take some workload away from Travis Etienne, which I think, could better his efficiency. So you still aren't going to be like terribly hurt by it. Like I don't think Tank Bigsby is coming in there for a 50-50 split or anything like that, but he could cut into that workload and hurt those numbers. So I think now is the time to get off of him. Now, this first trade is definitely not enough for me to move Travis Etienne. I want to hear your thoughts on it, though, McSpanky. Okay. It was Devin Singletary, Calvin Ridley and a 2025 round 3 and a start 11, 12 team, full PPR, 0.75 tight end premium for Travis Etienne.
I mean, at that point, that's helping you. And I like Devin Singletary. I think he's a good running back. I think he's going to have a nice year in New York. But, I mean, at that point, you're leaving value on the table. If that third round pick was like a early second, then I could kind of get on board with that a little bit more, just with how good the running back class looks next year. But where it is right now, like even with Etienne, he did struggle at the back end of last season, but so did all of Jacksonville, right? So I think the real Travis Etienne is somewhere between how he started last year, which was like the running back 1, and how he finished, which was awful. Yeah, I think the real Etienne is somewhere in between that. I do think there's going to be some Tank Bigsby mixed in there too, but even still, it's still Travis Etienne's offense, or his backfield rather, and he gets a decent amount of receiving work as well, which is always nice. So
he does. It's a good thing he stayed at Clemson to work on those hands. I remember that was a big ordeal for him. Big thing coming out, working on the hands. Why would you stay? Okay, on to the next trade. We got another Travis Etienne, 12 teams, start 11, full PPR, 1 tight end premium. This is Devin Singletary and a 2025 round 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Wow, we'll take the lot. Goodness gracious.
You think so?
I just meant it's just kind of funny. He clearly just sent his entire
right. Oh, I got you.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, that first, depending on where it is, like,
right. If that
I
goes towards
Devin
mid,
Singletary is like fine, but like if I get if that's like the 10, let's call it just like the 108 even, that's usually where like that tier cutoff is in rookie drafts. Man, give me the picks, I think, right? Like, I mean, the third and the fourth. The fourth, I don't care about what at all. The third, I could kind of work it into, maybe get some other trades done. Like that's not like, hopefully I'm not keeping that. But the second and the first pair with Singletary, like that's pretty nice value, I think. I don't know, man. What do you think about
that? I think we need the added context on those picks. I'm with you. Like 10, if it gets to 106, like it's a smash on the pick side, I think.
Sure.
But like the 107 to 108, my issue with it is Devin Singletary gonna give you that same or even close to a point per game, as what Etienne is gonna do for you. Or, this could be a rebuilding team and he's just like, I'm getting the running back out of here because he's at his highest point in value and he's doing exactly what we're talking about right now. He's just like, just get him out of here. I need to reset my team, which would be kind of odd with somebody like Travis Etienne because he's not all that old. I'm going to double check his age at the moment because I know he did play.
I think he's 25.
Where is he at here? Here he is.
Yep,
25.
I was just pulling up Etienne versus Singletary. Last year, Etienne had 16.6 fantasy points per game in PPR, whereas Singletary was down at 9.8. So that's on a good offense.
That's on a good offense. He's going to the Giants, and he's going to be the lead back on a Daniel Jones offense. Yeah. Where they were making comments like, we pay him $40 million a year, and we're going to let Daniel Jones figure it out. Like, we've seen that before, and I don't think it can work without a stud like Saquon standing behind Daniel Jones and the threat of that running game. Like, I love Devin Singletary. I think Devin Singletary is good at football. I think Devin Singletary needs to be on a high-powered offense to be an effective running back.
Yeah, I agree. He's a good running back to have on a good offense, but he's not the kind of running back who's going to make an offense. So, that's a little interesting. So I'm curious, rather than trying to pivot down all the way down to Singletary, what if we did Etienne and let's say we went down to Rachaad White? What do you think you could tack on to Rachaad White to make that worth your while?
Mid to early 2? Could you get that?
I would assume so. I bet you could get at least a mid 2.
Yeah. Mid 2, I'm probably like even kind of waffling about it. Early 2, I'm probably smashing at that point in time just because of what we're talking about. And let's look at on a points per game basis, they were literally a point different last year.
I was gonna say Rachaad White, for whatever reason, he's not valued as highly as Travis Etienne. I think it's just because the part of it is the draft capital thing, and
Right.
the Rachaad White was basically all on volume last year. He was very inefficient.
Yeah,
He scored a lot of points. Like the points do get scored. I think if you can get a second on it, I'm gonna do it. If it's even if it's a mid second, I think I could talk myself into it depending on how my roster is looking.
Sure. Could you get like a mid second and some like? Could you get a mid second and like Gus Bus thrown on there? Or do you think the Gus Bus owner is like me and they're just like, I know what Gus is. You're not taking the points from me.
Well, there was just a blurb today too that said like Gus Edwards is clearly the lead back in Los Angeles.
I saw that. I just didn't share it because it was sleeper.
we've been on that, so we've been knowing. But I think that could get done, and even and maybe if you were getting like a Gus Edwards or something, maybe you could kick in like a third on your side just to try to like here's a little something.
Right.
And early 2, I feel like it's too much. Like I don't want to pay that. If I could get it, that's great. I feel like a mid 2.
Sure.
I think I would still take it, honestly.
Okay.
It's gonna be league dependent for sure, but
definitely. As is always.
I know it's always a cop out, but
right. Oh no, I use it all the time. Don't worry about it. Here we go. Here's another one. Okay, so 12 teams, start 11, full PPR. This is the 2 tight end premium. We have Travis Etienne in a 2025 round 3 for Aaron Jones in a 2025 round 1. You got to assume that dude getting that round 1 is competing.
Yeah.
Gotta.
Yeah. My gut says to take Etienne on that, I think. And I love Aaron Jones too, but I know it feels like hold on.
It's a tough one. That's a super tough one. Because like we were talking about with the Singletary, if that becomes 107, 108, like how thrilled are you? Because you also get the Aaron Jones points for the season.
Right. That's the thing. I'm assuming that first is late though. So I feel like that's probably fairly even, right?
Sure.
But you're losing like how much does Aaron Jones have left in the tank? Like we think he's going to be good, but what if he's Austin Eckler this year? Or we think he's still got some juice, but he doesn't. It's all emptied out. The Packers did let him go, right?
They did, but
Jacobs.
Is that contractual, or is that because I think they wanted to keep him and pay Jacobs? I think there was a blurb that came out that said they wanted to have both in the backfield.
I'm sure teams want a lot of things, but like
sure.
Then make sure you get Ty Chandler. Yes, Holler.
Lordy.
But no, that's the thing though. Like with some of these vets, like there are some guys that I feel really confident they still have juice in the tank, right? Like Derrick Henry, we talked about him a lot. But there are some guys like Aaron Jones and Joe Mixon where it's like I think they can still play, but like I don't know. Like I hope they can, but I'm not like, oh yes, like for sure. I'm not like confident enough to say give me that pick. And then if that ends up being like the 112, then it's like, okay, so I basically traded ETN for bad
Aaron
points, a bad spot on my roster all year with Aaron Jones because I feel like you're gonna feel like you need to start him.
Sure.
And then you get the 112 and you're like, well, crap.
Right. I can see where you're coming from there. Yeah, definitely the Chargers running back room is a trap from Kevin. It's a cheap trap with it's a cheap trap with Gus Edwards. As long as you're not paying a second for Gus Edwards, I'll pay thirds all day and night for Gus Edwards.
I'm curious, what what makes you say it's a trap? Like I'm just trying to think because like the cost to get him isn't very high, right? Like
Right.
I think like 2/3 of value gets you Gus Edwards, and I mean if 2/3 of value screws up your dynasty team, you probably had bigger problems brewing on that team to begin with, right? Like
Definitely. Yeah. I don't see it as a trap. Maybe the Kamani Vidal hype. Maybe trying to get into J.K. Dobbins. Like I'm not down with this Vidal. I never heard Vidal's name until he landed with the Chargers, and that's when I usually know it's landing spot dependent that people want to pump this guy up. That's the CEH trap right there.
His analytic profile was real nice. The analytics people liked him, but he just, I mean, he didn't get, I mean, even still, he didn't get very good draft capital. So, like, if Vidal's on the field, it's probably because J.K. Dobbins, fell wrong, and then Gus Edwards got hurt, right? Like, I don't think he's good enough to beat out those two when they're healthy.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, J.K. Dobbins is an awesome running back. He's just never healthy.
He's fantastic. He can't stay on the field, which is unfortunate.
No. But. Okay. I got one more Travis Etienne trade for you. 12 teams, start 11, full PPR, 0.75 tight end premium. It is Travis Etienne and a 26 round 3 for JSN and a 2025 round 2.
That's unfortunate. Let's see. Let me use my trade calculator here real quick to see what I think. I built a trade calculator for situations such as this,
which is spectacular.
It does a decent job. Let's see. Let me pull it up. JSN. What side are you on while I'm putting this in?
As far out on JSN as I am, I've kind of slightly come around to it, and then yesterday I kind of backed off of it again just because like we haven't seen this Washington offense or Ryan Grubb be an offensive play caller. Gino took a mighty step back last year, and that was minus Dave Canales. So once again, he will be minus Dave Canales yet again, and we are relying on a college offensive coordinator who came from Washington, and you know how I feel about Pac-12 teams. I don't care that they made the playoff. I really don't.
Say that Pac-12 team made the championship game.
They played Texas with the worst passing defense in the entire country to get to that. And then they got absolutely slapped.
Win's a win.
Win's a win, and then they got absolutely slapped by a team that just punched them straight in the mouth. And I hate Michigan. But that's what they did.
So, okay. Dynasty Daddy says that trade is like basically dead on even. My trade calculator says to take the JSN side. I don't know if I do. I like JSN. That's hard though. Like if I'm taking that trade, I'm probably thinking my team isn't competing this year. Like there's no way, right?
Sure.
I'm probably more of like on the, if I'm like closer to mid, but probably closer to it's more likely I don't make the playoffs than it is that I do. And so then I would feel okay about it. And then hope that I can get a running back next year to replace ETN and hope that JSN hits, which I do think he will. Like I've talked about JSN quite a bit on this podcast. I love Njigba, but that's a good trade. That's a really good trade. I like that one a lot.
Yeah. These last two are definitely tough ones. I wanted to actually find some tough ones. The first two were just kind of like, I was like, man, I don't know if I could ever do anything like that for, the Singletary stuff.
I think Singletary going down was too far.
Yeah, I agree. That's the hard thing about tearing down, though. You and I kind of talked about it earlier in Dynasty Theory leagues. Like, it's almost easier to trade up these days because everybody wants to move back. Nobody's out here like, yeah, I'm moving up. I'm paying for all these guys, and you can at least get fair move ups. You're not overpaying to move up because some people are just happy that you're even gonna trade up with them.
Giving them a package.
They're just struggling out there. Yeah. But anyway, you want to move on to your running back?
Yeah, so let's talk about Jonathan Taylor here for a second. He is currently the running back. I just lost my notes. Sorry. He's a running back 6 right now in Dynasty Daddy. He's a really good player. I love Jonathan Taylor. This isn't a crap on Jonathan Taylor argument. It's just so he played like maybe a quarter with Anthony Richardson last season, and it was in Jonathan Taylor's first game back from the ankle or the back injury or whatever he was calling it. Last year, I think it was his ankle. And then Anthony Richardson got hurt in that game when he came back. So Taylor really, him and they didn't play together essentially. So we don't really know what that offense is going to look like with the two of them in the same backfield. The concern I have is rushing quarterbacks usually don't check the ball down a ton. Like if you think about like Lamar, he didn't really ever check the ball down to his running backs. He just, because, when you think about it, there's like, well, I can just run that myself, which I think Anthony Richardson is definitely in a run first mentality rather than I'm going to check down to Jonathan Taylor. So I think that's going to hinder his receiving work quite a bit. And then who's getting the goal line touches here? So he got 11 carries inside the 5 that resulted in 6 touchdowns last season. Are we sure that he's going to get those carries again, or is Anthony Richardson going to carry those himself on like kind of like a read option kind of play? Whereas defenses are going to try to focus on the good running back, or are they going to focus on the quarterback? Like we don't know, and it makes me.
Who invented the tush push? Steichen.
Was it Steichen?
Yeah,
that's funny.
I believe Steichen is the one that brought it to Philly.
But the reason for some pause here too, and why Jonathan Taylor has a lot of value, like after his week 5 and 6 games where he only got like 6 and 8 touches, he was a running back 3 in the weeks that he played. So he was awesome when he was back in the field. Now, granted, that was with Gardner Minshew, as opposed to Anthony Richardson, who is way more of a rushing threat. So we'll see. Now let's see what can you get for Jonathan Taylor. I pulled up a few trades that all happened within the last week. This first one here, it's a 12-teamer, a super flex, start 10, full PPR, an additional point for tight ends, so 2 points for receptions for tight ends. Jonathan Taylor for Jackson Smith and Jigba, and a 25 first. What side are you on
there? Assuming that first is late, I'm going to take Jonathan Taylor. Even all the way up to 108, I'm probably still taking Jonathan Taylor because you know how I feel about JSN.
I know you do. That's fair. I bet Holler would have taken the JSN side for me.
Probably. I'll at least give you an even. Like I could see why you would do it. Like if your team's just in shambles, I could see, why you would move the running back and take the shot on JSN. It's not totally insane and outlandish to take the trade.
Speaking of our boy Gus Bus here, Jonathan Taylor for Gus Edwards, a 25 first, a 26 first, and a 26 second. So you're getting 2 firsts, Gus Edwards in a second. Now, granted, 2 of those picks are 2 years out, but
yeah, but like we talked about, are these late firsts? On that 25, you got to think if you're willing to send them out there like that, man. I know it's 2 firsts. Can I get 2 firsts and 25 for? I know I feel like it's being greedy, but man, I really love Jonathan Taylor. Like I just think he's a stud, and I know it's we're trying to sell our studs now, here, but it kind of along the same lines of the Devin Singletary tear downs from Travis Etienne. Like Gus Edwards feels too far, but you go any further up from that, you're probably losing a first out of that deal. So
yeah, one thing I will say, and I think that sometimes doesn't get factored into these trades enough, is if you're the one selling Jonathan Taylor for those 2 picks and Gus Edwards, that also not only do you get the extra picks, but that also makes your own first pick more valuable, right? Because theoretically, your team is going to suck, right? And then you can try to sell Gus Edwards too during the season if he gets off to a hot start or whatever it may be. Or maybe your team isn't that far off and you're going to say, I'm going to get cheap production Gus Edwards. Now I have 2 extra firsts to go out and acquire some extra dudes to help my roster.
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there. I think I'm on the side. Give me the picks. And then I have possibilities of I can I can either just tank my team all the way, I can try to get some more picks, or if my team is like, well, maybe it starts out okay, maybe you get a win or two to start the season you didn't think you were going to, and you're like, okay, now I'm going to try to use these picks and try to get some extra guys that really compete here. So I think it gives you a little more flexibility rather than just holding on to Jonathan Taylor, which I guess, let me ask you this too, because I kind of just made the point, but I didn't get your opinion on it. Are you worried at all about Anthony Richardson taking away from Jonathan Taylor, like either in the red zone or about Jonathan Taylor's just like receiving work?
I don't care too much about his receiving work because I think of Jonathan Taylor as he's a home run hitter, and he also does all the dirty work too. So he can literally be on the field and take all the volume, that he can handle. And I know that he's been dinged up and knocked around, and that's an issue. But honestly, show me a running back that hasn't. Is kind of where I'm at with it. And I'm going to take the guy that literally can, win you weeks and things along those lines. It's kind of why I was struggling with that pick package, because while it looks super awesome and super sexy right now, those picks can turn into Jalen Reagor. They can turn into Quentin Johnston.
It could turn into Justin Jefferson too.
It could. It could. We could go either way with this. That's for sure. We could talk in circles on that one.
It's like, are you a water's glasses half full or half empty kind of guy?
Sure.
Yeah, there's no one behind Jonathan Taylor right now. That is
Trey Sermon is there now. I've been picking Trey up off waivers.
I stand by what I said. There's no one behind Jonathan
Taylor. Okay, so the reason that he is useful is because of Steichen, though, and the system. We just saw Gardner Minshew be useful.
Wasn't he in Philadelphia with Steichen and didn't do anything there?
Was he there with Steichen? Steichen's been in Indy for 2 years? Or 1 year?
Oh, maybe he wasn't. Maybe he just missed him. Steichen's been in there. This is his 3rd year in Indy, right?
Okay, he may have just missed Sermon then. But we just saw Zach Moss do nothing in Buffalo for his entire career and show up and be useful for that game and a half.
That's not entirely fair. Zach Moss is better than that. Okay, he had some moments in Buffalo.
Running back 3 moments.
He had moments. Moments of usefulness.
But now he's a hot commodity and gets paid.
Yeah, now he's a league winner, according to some people, some smart people out there. Jeff called Zach Moss a league winner.
Chase Brown.
Stop. Okay, one last Jonathan Taylor trade. Jonathan Taylor and a 25-second for T. Higgins and a 25-1. This one feels fairly well. I'll let you give your take on it.
I'll take T. Higgins.
Same.
I like T. Higgins. Yeah. T. Higgins in a first-round pick. Yeah. Done. Give it to me.
Yeah, that one feels pretty straightforward, I feel like. The one and T. Higgins. T. Higgins is ready to ball out this year. He's ready to get paid. And I think he's gonna
hurt no more.
Burrow's coming back. I think that a whole offense is due for just like a really nice bounce back, right? Like Jamar Chase is down, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, all their values are just down, right?
Yep.
We got our boy Zach Moss. Yeah. He's gonna light it up.
Chase Brown's the guy.
Chase Brown can get some too, but it's going to be the Zach Moss show, and I'm excited to see it. I think he's going to get a bunch of touchdowns. I think that whole offense is just gonna hum, and I'm
man. They're going on a revenge tour.
And first on top of it, like, come on, let's go.
Right, definitely, I'm right there with you. You want to get into your bonus guy, or should we get out of here? What do you think?
Yeah, just real quick. I was looking at some other top end guys, and I came across Jahmyr Gibbs, who I don't necessarily want to sell him, but I think there's some value to be had here. Like a couple trades I saw, Jahmyr Gibbs plus Josh Oliver, so we can just essentially say that was Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs for Saquon Barkley and Jaden Reed, which I think is like, if you want to look at just like pure like points per game, I think Saquon and Jahmyr Gibbs will probably be about even. Then you get Jaden Reed, who's a pretty solid player. I know you're not a huge fan of him, but he's on a good offense. I think he's going to have moments. There's also Jahmyr Gibbs for Devon Achane and Ladd McConkey, who I think, so basically 2 promising running backs, and Ladd McConkey, who I know you and I both really like. Gibbs for Isaiah Pacheco and Chris Olave, which I think is a pretty good one as well. So I think it's worth maybe shopping Jahmyr Gibbs, even if you're not trying to like sell him, just maybe throw him out there for some offers and see if anyone bites, right? Because there's that whole idea of he's like a top 3 running back right now in Dynasty. Like after that, the waters get a little muddled. Whereas he's got a really good situation. He's on a good offense. He's on a good offensive line in front of him. He's a really good situation. He's using the passing game. He's electric. He's great, right? So I think those are the kind of trades where I don't necessarily want like fair value if I'm moving Gibbs. I want premium value, and I think those are some of the examples of like I would move him for that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be super greedy here and really dig into my Lions fandom. You're gonna have to give me more than this for me to give you Gibbs.
Are you serious right now?
Yeah, don't send me the shit.
Well,
no, they're fine. They really are fine.
Don't send me
I just they really are fine, and I can see why people could do it that aren't Lions fans and they don't have the love for Jahmyr Gibbs that I have for him. But man, dude's a stud, dude. But I mean, like you said, we got Saquon here. We both like Lad. I don't know.
The Achane one, the only thing that makes me nervous is like
is Achane himself.
Is what is yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Like value wise, I think all of these are in favor of trading him away.
Sure.
It's just
sure.
I don't know. Can you do it, right? Like in the Olave one too. Like I feel like Chris Olave, he's always that guy. I swear for the last like 2 seasons he's like led the NFL in like unrealized air yards or something crazy. And it's like, well, this isn't going to change. His quarterback situation is not getting better, right? Like we can hope some of these start landing, but he could just be a guy who's an awesome talent with crappy quarterback play. So.
Yeah, I agree. Olave averaged 9 points per game last year.
Yeah, probably could have been a lot more if he had a competent quarterback.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be great. Well, I'm all set. You got any final thoughts here? Parting thoughts?
Just there's a new college football game coming out next week.
Oh yeah.
If you guys want to play, hit me up. And we'll get some play nows coming in. I'm getting the game next week, so it'll be fun. We'll play, and then we'll be in Canton for the Fantasy Football Expo. That'll be fun. And let us
stop by,
say hello, and buy us a drink. I don't know, whatever. Buy me one. I don't know. So, but that's all I had. So we'll catch you next time, and hopefully we'll be back to our normal threesome.
Yeah, buddy. See ya.
All right. Peace out.